that has been used also by different other programs and researchers, that you decide to do this judgment of that is the best piece because of the tempo fluctuations or because the tempo is so high. Because we could see in the figure that the tempo is in the score is stated as presto 135 to 140 BPM. So, and the tempo which was played there is like 170, 180, around that it was. So it's more like a decision by the interpreter and by the performer what tempo he chooses for his interpretation. So I think that taking the decision or taking the judgment by empirical research is a wrong approach to judge the piece just because it's a nice graph, it's a nice curve or something like this.
Yes, actually, that graph was quoted from one of my very long articles. The tempo issue in this piece is very complicated because the original scores have different versions, all published after the composer's death. In different versions, in different editions of scores, the tempo marking is very, very different. And actually, if you ever watch the whole opera, the same material is used not only in the overture, but also the main material for the first theme is also used in the coda of the whole opera. When that same material emerged in the coda, there is a presto, prestissimo, the highest tempo marking.
Yeah, there's a prestissimo.
So when this overture is played dedicatedly in a concert hall, probably the conductor has the right to play it in the highest tempo as is required in the coda of the whole opera. So there are many elements to explain the tempo issues, the overall tempo and the fluctuation of tempo. The fluctuation, if you notice that graph, Gergiev fluctuation is not freely decided, but very strictly follow the structure of the piece, the sonata form, the first theme, and then the transition, and the second theme, and the free parts in the development session is very was highlighted by the fluctuation of tempo. I can't explain this question in a very, very short time. You probably can read my article about that.
Okay. Next question, please. Oh, yeah, okay.
Thank you. I don't know if I'm asking this question of the right scholars, but in general, performances over the years have gotten faster and faster and louder and louder. In the last 3 years, I was assaulted by the 6th Mahler Symphony and the 2nd Mahler Symphony so much I had to leave the hall. I got such a pain in my ears and head.
Yeah, well, I can take it a little bit. I mean, for me, it's one of the cautionary tales because what happens often in training, students, and Bernard and I were talking about competitions and things the other day, and there is a tendency to go for faster, louder, higher. I mean, and part of that is the natural athleticism of the field that it grows. I mean, we athletes break records and things like this, but it's a real challenge because in many cases, you lose a lot of opportunity for nuance, and I would say it's the artistic or performative equivalent of treating it as a curriculum, as a race, as opposed to a journey. And I mean, one sees that a lot. Of course, we have. I touched only very briefly on the technological aspects, but the onslaught of being surrounded by sound and technology. How many concerts do you go that have electronic music where the electronic music is pumped up, far higher than what one would wish for in many cases, and or theaters and that. So this is an overall challenge and tendency. And what's interesting, I think, is that in addition to the concrete aspects of that, it also seems to start to affect interpretation, which is what you're saying, and that's a bigger challenge to know how to rectify.
Next question.
Did we lose
everybody's
We lost
waiting
Jeanne.
for some coffee. We still have 5 minutes. We're going to use up 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. Okay. What?
Thank you, all of you, for a very, very interesting session, tying up a number of themes. Professor Yang in educating children in maths and music in China, Professor Bamberger doing the same in Massachusetts, and Professor McLean in Canada. One thing that common comes to mind is the fact you said about liberating the students, liberating the children. And one way we see that we can liberate ourselves in the struggle for excellence in music and mathematics is actually try and not kill the creative spark, the improvisation that you say it dies out in the second grade because you fail at it. One of the ways that we can actually encourage ourselves, enable ourselves to do that is use a small trick that we use in Indian music. And that is vocalization of both tonality, the melody, as well as the rhythm component. If I can just take 60 seconds to illustrate what I mean. For example, the first lesson we do is to vocalize the entire octave. For example, we go sa re ga ma pa da ni sa ni da pa ma ga re sa. That's an 8-beat cycle. And then to teach tempo, we go sa re ga ma pa da ni sa ni da pa ma ga re sa. And then we go faster. Sa re ga ma pa da ni sa ni da pa ma ga re sa re ga ma pa da. So we would go on until we fill the gaps, like Professor Bamberger said. If it takes twice as if you go twice as slow, then you have to take twice as long to complete the cycle. So this is built in, and then it enables people to be creative in many ways. And
Great.
the more you sing, the more you get an idea into the architecture of the piece, and it helps you improvise.
So I mean, you know, there's a lot to that. I think that one of the challenges we've had is, for many years, and I think the cycle's changing now, is that in most Western music, one didn't do that. One read the notes, and improvisation was considered something that only a particular sector of people did. You know, you can't theorize your way through the Waldstein Sonata. You know, you have to actually play the thing if you're going to play it. And so much, I don't mean by any of the thing I've said to suggest that practical reiteration is not crucial for developing technique and for developing musicality. It's just that, you know, often the way in which it's done is not that much fun. The way in which math is done is not that much fun. And for those people who have an inclination or are struck by the stuff, they can work through that anyway. But education shouldn't be successful despite itself.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, if there are no questions, I'd just like to add a comment, and it's Professor Bamberger is not connected now, right? It's very late for her to carry on.
It's very late, yeah.
Actually, I find what you talk about very interesting, because often we take things for granted. You know, the notion of fraction and notion of multiples is very easy for I mean, I don't know, very easy for people like me, but she said it's very difficult to make to make children understand it, and how it can be used or how she used it to use rhythm, time in music to explain the notion, and also to connect this notion of multiple and fraction with rhythm and time in music, and then use this as a foundation for creating coherent music. I find it very interesting. I mean, we take things for granted. We think concepts in one field, it's so easy to us, but probably it's very difficult for people in the other field. And I think this should be something that we should watch out for when we educate young people, particularly in the field of Mathemusical. On this note, please join me in giving a big round of applause for the three speakers. Oh, it's tea and jam now. Tea and jam.